Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where in the world you are. Thank you for joining us. My name is Mario Sanchez, and I run training in the doc team here at Sumo Logic. And joining me today is, sorry, Kalyan, I almost forgot your name here. Joining us today is Kalyan Ramanathan from, he's VP of Product. And Kalyan is we're gonna tag team today. We're gonna be running through a unified platform, logs and metrics. I think that some of you, I recognize names, have joined some of our previous webinars. But what we're trying to do today is show you how we can correlate your metrics to your relevant logs so you can improve your troubleshooting time. With that said, you guys, a little bit of housekeeping. I will be recording this webinar, and later on I will be sharing both the slides as well as the recording. There's some links to additional resources that I want to share with you guys on the slides themselves. And also, you notice that you're on mute, and the reason for that is just to avoid distractions. So if you do have any questions, on the right-hand side, you have a question panel. We will try to respond to these as much as we can in line, but we also have a Q&A session at the end. So if we can't get to all the questions in line, we certainly will get to them as we go. So with that said, from an agenda perspective, we'll start with an overview of Sumo Logic. Most of you probably have seen Sumo Logic. As a matter of fact, let me do something here. I'm being a little informal on this, but let me launch a quick poll to get a good sense of where you guys are in terms of your knowledge of Sumo Logic. So this will take you a good 3 to 5 seconds to finish this poll, but that'll allow us to get a sense of where you are in terms of your familiarity with Sumo Logic. Excellent. Looks like, thank you everybody who's voting. I appreciate it. The numbers seem to be the vast majority of you, about 50% of you are familiar with Sumo Logic logs, but not necessarily with metrics. A few of you are brand new to Sumo Logic, and about a quarter of you are a bit familiar with both logs and metrics. So that's good. This is a good place for all of you. For those of you who know both logs and metrics, we will show you a few good things of how you can implement it. For those who are brand new to metric, we certainly will focus a little more on the metric side and teach you that kind of stuff. And for those of you that are newish or newish to Sumo Logic, although this is not an intro webinar, still you will get a very good sense of how you can configure your environment to take advantage of both logs and metrics. Fantastic. All right, let me close this poll for now. Thank you for those of you who voted. So with that said, since we have a mixed crowd, we'll start with an overview of Sumo Logic. What does a unified machine data platform look like? We'll talk a little bit about a use case, in particular HootSuite, who has used Sumo Logic to manage their modern apps. And then we'll jump into a troubleshooting demo showing you how you can configure your logs and your metrics to help you with your troubleshooting use case. And then after this demo, which itself is technical, I'll dive into more technical pieces around how to send the Sumo Logic, how to send your logs and your metrics into Sumo Logic, and then we'll have a little Q&A session for you guys. All right, Kalyan, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much, Mario. And this is Kalyan Ramanathan. I'm the VP of Products here at Sumo Logic. I'm going to take a few minutes and introduce Sumo Logic to some of the folks in this call today who don't know about the company and what we do. And very briefly put, who is Sumo Logic? We are a cloud-native machine data analytics platform, and what we do is to help our customers manage the operations and security of their mission-critical applications. So, what is machine data? It's a big phrase. What does that actually mean? Machine data typically means logs, metrics, and events. And these are data elements that are typically generated by your application when it is running, when it is serving your customers. And what Sumo Logic excels at is in one, ingesting all kinds of machine data and at scale. Two, providing lots of analytics around this machine data so that you can quickly understand problems in your applications and get to the root cause of problems. And then three, allows you to dashboard and report all kinds of aspects of your application so that you can share these application insights with other stakeholders within your organization. So a little bit about the company itself. We are about a 7-year-old company. We have about 1,200 customers that we support today. Some great brand names, as you can recognize. Twitter, Airbnb, Salesforce, Pinterest, etc. But we also work with many, traditional companies who are going through digital transformations and are building, new modern applications. We are a big data solution ourselves. We ingest, petabytes of data, and we also process, hundreds of petabytes of data on a daily basis. The service is entirely hosted on AWS, so it's a SaaS service. All you need to do is send us your data, and voila, we start to analyze the data from that point on. You don't have to, deal with setting up the service, running the service, upgrading the service. We take care of all of that for you guys. So, who are the kinds of customers that we typically service? Most of our customers happen to be folks who are building, modern applications on modern infrastructures and modern services. So, we see three characteristics, within many of our customers, right? So, their modern apps are typically deployed on cloud platforms today, and more often than not, public cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, or even Google Cloud Platform. The reliability, the scalability, the elasticity of cloud has come to such a point that it just makes a lot of economic sense to now start using, these public cloud platforms to deploy your application and to run your application. Many of our customers are also, DevOps and Agile shops, so they do, lots of, releases and iterations of their applications, and these applications are changing a lot, and therefore managing the performance and operations and as well as the security of these applications has become quite tricky, and that's why they come to Sumo Logic. And then finally, many of our customers are also going down the microservices path, where you can decompose an application into, many small microservices, which can be independently revved and iterated on, thus delivering your applications faster, but at the same time, making your applications more complex too. So what is required to managing these complex apps today, right? And what's the right way to manage the operations as well as security of these complex apps? We believe that the right way to manage these apps is through a unified machine data analytics platform. And there are three characteristics to this machine data analytics platform. First and foremost, you need to be able to handle and ingest, all kinds of machine data that comes from these applications. May they be logs, may they be metrics, may they be events. And Sumo Logic excels at bringing it all together into a platform in the native form. And the second aspect of the unified machine data analytics platform is the ability to analyze and correlate all of this data, so that now when you see a spike in, let's say, a metric, maybe your customer transactions are taking too long to fulfill, you also see that there is a corresponding spike in, let's say, logs and errors and exceptions that is coming from your application or your infrastructure. So the ability to correlate all of these machine data elements and be able to quickly identify the needle in a haystack, and then the root cause of the problem is at the heart of a machine data analytics platform. The last thing that a machine data analytics platform ought to provide is scalability and elasticity, right? As many of you, I'm sure, on the call already know, applications and infrastructures and services today are generating lots of machine data, and there's a lot of elasticity in this in the machine data world too. So the ability to scale up and scale down on an as-needed basis is exceptionally critical. And the fact that Sumo Logic runs on AWS allows us to leverage the power of the AWS cloud and provide these capabilities to you. The value to you, the customer, are primarily three things, right? First and foremost, now I have complete visibility into my application. Everything from my apps to my web server, to my databases, to my infrastructure, to the containers, to perhaps even services that are being used by the application. Two, I have the ability to now manage the performance of my application, the end-to-end performance of my application. So I can track the performance of my application. I can be instantly alerted when something doesn't work right. And then Sumo Logic also provides machine learning capabilities so that you can quickly identify the root cause of the problem. Thirdly, Sumo Logic also allows you to ensure the security of the application itself. So, again, Sumo Logic has lots of capabilities built into our solution, including an embedded and integrated threat intelligence offering, which allows you to quickly identify, who is using your application, where are they using from, how are they using the application, so that you can ensure the security as well as the compliance posture of your application. So, how does a customer actually use Sumo Logic? And let me sort of explain this in the context of HootSuite. For those of you who don't know, HootSuite is a social media management platform. And I recently did a webinar with HootSuite, and they explained, how they, they explained their IT operations processes and how they came about to adopt Sumo Logic. So let me sort of give you a narrative here, right? So HootSuite is, again, a social media, management platform. It's a SaaS-based solution. It's all based on AWS. And highly microservice-based and agile and DevOps environment. The customer and our champion at HootSuite, Alex, who is the director of IT operations, was primarily responsible for managing the performance and availability of this application. And he initially started out by using the Elk stack, Elasticsearch, Kibana, and Logstash to manage his logs. He also bought in Graphite and Grafana to manage his metrics. And initially the solution worked just fine. I mean, they were a small enough shop. They were serving a few customers, and this was a fine open source platform to start out with. But then they soon realized that as they serve more customers across multiple geographies and millions of concurrent users, that the management stack itself was not scaling well with the application. In fact, the quote that Alex mentioned was, look, I mean, what works for 100 nodes doesn't work for 1,000 nodes, doesn't work for 1,500 or 2,000 nodes, which is where HootSuite is today. So the company was looking for a alternative. They were looking for a commercial solution where the machine data that is coming from that is being generated by the HootSuite application will be ingested, will be centralized, will be analyzed, and that's how they settled on Sumo Logic. So Sumo Logic provides HootSuite with a SaaS-based offering. All the HootSuite has to do now is to send their logs and metrics to Sumo Logic. We provide a consolidated offering that manages all kinds of machine data coming from this application. We provide them machine learning capabilities so that they can very quickly identify, problems when they get alerted about issues within the service itself. And that's the value that HootSuite has been able to obtain with Sumo Logic. The icing on the cake, as Alex would say, is that not only did I get TCO value, not only did I reduce my MTTI and MTTR, but Sumo Logic also helped me refocus my IT organization to delivering the HootSuite application and the HootSuite service, and not worry about the analytics service, which is not a core competency of the company anyways. So that's the value that Sumo Logic provides customers like HootSuite and other customers like Twitter and Airbnb and Pinterest, etc. Let me now talk briefly about how the Sumo Logic service works, and then I will turn it over to Mario to actually show you the product in action itself. So how does the Sumo Logic service work? What is needed to get the Sumo Logic service up and running? As I mentioned before, the Sumo Logic service is a SaaS service. So all you need to do is to send us the data, and then magic happens from that point on, right? And the way you send us your data is through either a locally host collector or a cloud collector. So if you so choose to deploy our collector, which you can deploy on a Windows machine or a or a Linux machine, the collectors know to collect the right data, metrics, logs, etc., that come from your application, and then they pipe it to our service. Or for that matter, if you can give us your CloudWatch, access, we know to slurp the data and bring it into our service automatically. Once the data comes into the Sumo Logic service, we start to actively monitor this data. So we will look at trends within this data. We will alert based on, anomalies in this data. We then provide you a suite of capabilities that allows you to troubleshoot and get to the root cause of the problems. And then finally, because we deal with machine data, and machine data comes from all aspects of the application, we also allow you to understand trends within your application. Who are the users who are coming to your application? Where are they coming from? How are they using your application? Are you seeing upticks or downticks, for that matter, in terms of user and usage of your application itself? So we can provide you lots of visibility into your application so that you can continue to optimize the usage and serve your users well. So with that context, let me now turn it over to Mario, who will actually show you how all these things come together within the Sumo Logic service.
Thanks, Kalyan. Appreciate it. So yeah, let's. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through a troubleshooting demo of how to use these logs and metrics together to get to your root cause. What I'll do is I'll start with I'll show you how you can break it down into three stages, if you will. You get an alert that is notifying you of a critical event. This alert can come through an email, as simple as email, or you could have some webhook to anything that offers a REST API. Let's say a Slack or a PagerDuty. Or a Datadog or a HipChat. So anything that you're already using internally, you can receive an alert. That alert will point you to, or will direct you to the next step. In our case, it'll direct us to a dashboard where we can start using metrics to identify what is going on. We can start identifying why things are not happening from a business point of view. I'll show you in a second. I'm using a travel website, so it starts showing me that I cannot have bookings. Bookings are failing in my organization. But the interesting thing is, where do we go from there? Now that I know what is going on, I really need to dive into why this is happening. And that's where we go to this third area on the right-hand side, which is your logs. The ability to correlate the relevant logs to your metrics so you can identify why this is happening. So as I mentioned, I'm going to be using this site called TravelLogic. And TravelLogic could be an app very similar to any of you guys. It's using containers, it's using microservices. There's all these different things in the back end that we want to be able to monitor. And they allow us, the service they provide is allow you to book hotel, they allow you to book flights and all that good stuff. So if I am wearing the hat of the DevOps team or the IT team for TravelLogic, I most likely will have to set up a lot of alerts, a lot of dashboards to keep an eye on this kind of stuff. Having said that, I have a particular dashboard here. Let me refresh it for us to be able to continue with this. I have my operational overview dashboard, and if you notice, as soon as I refreshed it, I started getting a lot of reds. In the back end, I went and I inserted a few errors to our demo so that we can see what it looks like in a wartime situation, if you will, with a lot of reds. You also notice that I have my dashboard set up so that if I have any issues here, it's going to be sending me some messages to my Slack channel. Just to give you an example of how that might look like, here is the message that I would receive. You notice it's coming from TravelLogic Ops. It's giving me a link to the results themselves, so I could dig into why this alert triggered. In theory, I have some threshold, and once that threshold gets, once we go over that threshold, we trigger this alert. So I could look at the results that trigger that, or I could even create my alert to point me to a specific dashboard. In this case, our operational overview dashboard. All right, so if I'm IT ops here, either I got an alert and I'm already looking, know that something's going on, or I have this dashboard displayed in my operation, in my ops center, right? So clearly there's a few reds. And what this is showing me, it's an overview of everything that is going on in my environment. I could look at the nitty-gritty stuff like the ELB 500s that I'm getting. Clearly a lot of errors there. I can see on the right-hand side here the responses that I'm getting, response times. I can see my VPC network rejects as well. I can see any database issues. This could be my AWS RDS, for example. I could see work issues. But on top of my infrastructure, I can also keep an eye on my custom app. So if I have a checkout service, I can see that there's some issues with my checkout service. There's some issues with my product service as well. So I can set up this dashboard to give me a big picture of what is happening. And if anything from here is starting to look red, I can dive a little deeper into it. So let's do exactly that. I see that my checkout service here is having some issues. This is not good news because it looks like people are booking flights. They're booking, they're reserving flights, they're reserving hotels, but at the end of the day, they cannot check out. They cannot pay me money, and that's not good. So let's find out what's going on. I'm going to click on this checkout service panel, and what it's doing right now is it's taking me to another dashboard that is giving me a little more detail of what is going on. And if I look at this dashboard called Services Detail, top left-hand corner, I can see my bookings. Green here is showing me that all the way up till around 10 a.m. today, I'm in Pacific time, that's why this is showing 10 a.m. All around 10 a.m., things were going great. I had mostly counts of success bookings, but starting somewhere around 10 a.m. or shortly before 10 a.m., you notice this orange shade here, this area is showing me my failed counts. So I'm starting to see some failed bookings. Again, this is using metrics to understand what is going on. So I see that something's going on. Now I dig in a little deeper and I see that from a business perspective, people are not being able to book flights, or I'm starting to have some failures in my bookings. For completeness, let me walk you through a few of these other panels. This one right underneath is showing me errors that have happened across the last 7 days. So it looks like for days number -1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, I did not have errors around this same time. However, it looks like right now for today, I see a spike in errors going on. So this is not something, this is not a trend. This is not something that has happened in the previous days. This is certainly something that's happening today in particular. Here's my gateway latency. It looks like all of a sudden I had some spikes, some outliers, which are identified by these pink triangles. So clearly around that same time, right before 10 a.m., something started happening. My gateway latency, this is probably the one that triggered that alert that I got through Slack, right? My latency is spiking. My bookings are spiking. There's a spike in errors. Down here at the bottom, I can see that there are some nodes in particular that are giving me issues. I see errors by node. And if I hover over that, you'll notice that it says source name, customer service team.travel checkout, and then a number following that. So I'm already, just from these dashboards, getting a good sense that one, I cannot, my customers cannot book on my site, and two, it probably has to do with my node travel checkout. I can see that from these nodes over here. If I go over to the top right-hand side, my other left, I can see CPU and total memory. And again, there's a huge spike here in CPU usage. And if I look at that little black bubble that popped up, it says that my metric is the average CPU. And again, it happens to be in my travel checkout node. So I'm starting to dig in a little bit deeper. I identified that its errors happen to be in this particular node. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and dig even a little bit deeper. I'm going to go and look at that particular panel, but I'm going to look at it in interactive mode now. I'm going to see what's going on with these particular nodes and what's going on with them. In this particular metrics query here, I have CPU and total memory. I'm going to hide total memory. I really don't need that to be distracting. So by clicking or toggling on this, I can hide memory. And now I can focus on the nodes themselves. Look at that. There's the spike. I can see that the travel checkout node is the one spiking. The other ones seem to be okay for the most part. So this one seems to be my travel products node. There seems to be another travel MySQL node there. But my travel checkout nodes, again, seem to be spiking. What I'm going to show you now is this really cool thing where I can overlay my logs with my metrics. So I want to start digging into the why. Why is this going on? What in my logs is telling me that there are some errors going on? So down here at the bottom, I have the ability to search my logs. For those of you who know the log world, you probably understand this metadata information. I'm going to choose source category, and since I know that this is for my customer services team, I'm going to start looking for customer service team data, and there is in particular my travel checkout, which is the one having the issues. So I can look for all my data that has anything to do with travel checkout, but since I don't care to look at all my logs, I'm going to look at only those logs that have the word error in it. And when I run this search, what it comes up is fairly revealing. This little bar here, the top right-hand corner, is showing me the occurrences of the word error in my logs, because that's what I was searching for down here at the bottom. So if you notice, before 10 o'clock this morning, I was having no errors at all. And then all of a sudden I had a big spike in errors. The darker the square in here, or the darker the tile, the more occurrences of the word error that happen in there. And from here, I'm starting to see that, yes, there are some errors in my log. Now, what I have to do is go find out what those errors are all about. But you start seeing how I went from the what is going on, looking at my metrics, to understanding why this is happening as I start investigating my logs themselves. I've got a couple of options from here. I can click on any of these tiles, and what happens is it shows me the logs here in line with this graph. So I can start looking at my logs, and I see that this one in here has the word error, and it looks like I have some certificate error issue going on. There's another one here that has the word error with an invalid access key. So I could look through my logs in here, but that's a little bit hard to do. I mean, it looks like there's a lot of log messages here. So what I would really want to do is harness the power of the log analytics that we already have in our product. So instead of just looking at these and eyeballing them in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift click, and that's going to allow me to take those logs, take that same query that I had before, and pull those logs now and start doing all the analytics that I want to do in here. For those of you, like 50% of you who voted that you know the logs world, this will look very familiar. For those of you who are brand new, let me walk you a little bit through this. What I've just done is I've searched all the logs that have anything to do with travel checkout with the word error for this particular time period. I'm going to make it even a little simpler. Let's just choose that for the last 60 minutes. And tell you what, I'm actually going to expand my query or make my query a little bit bigger and not just search for the word error, but I'm going to search for everything that had to do with travel checkout for the last 60 minutes. The reason I'm doing that is because it's most likely that whatever caused the error doesn't necessarily have the word error in it. So I just want to see anything that happened in the last 60 minutes. Now, if you look at this, I'm getting 64,000 messages. That's a lot of messages to go through. As a matter of fact, it's about 2,500 pages worth of messages. So I'm going to cheat here. I'm going to use this easy button called log reduce. And by cheating, what I mean is I'm getting Sumo Logic to help me out with their data analytics. What Sumo Logic is doing right now for me is it's creating these signatures. It's looking through my 64,000 messages, and it's saying, okay, which messages look so similar that I'm going to group them into a signature. So you notice how it's going through and it's saying, all right, it looks like you have about 6,000 messages that all have the same signature. Let me give you an example here. This one, it says you have 282 messages that all look the same. Of course, your date is going to be different. Perhaps the IP address is going to be different. So anything that you see a star in here means that it's used it as a variable. But in all, what it did is it still has those 64,000 messages, but it reduced those 2,500 pages down to 3 pages that are a lot easier to sift through and look at what's going on in here. What's even better is that it brought up those things that are relevant for me. So now I can start looking through a smaller number of messages and see, okay, cool. It looks like that certificate error that I saw before. You notice this certificate verified failed. It looks like I got about 2,500 of those messages. And then it also looks like there was another message here that it thinks is fairly relevant for me. And if for those of you who are developers or DevOps, this will be fairly meaningful. Here is the TravelLogic app that is starting. And if you notice, for that service called checkout, it looks like someone deployed that a development version into my production environment. So if I put things together, it looks like someone put development code into my production environment, which is probably causing that certificate issue that is not letting people be able to book because we're getting the certificate issue. So you've noticed kind of what I've done in here is, let me go back to the slides just for a second. What I've done is I've started with an alert. I've used that alert to go straight into a dashboard that is showing me what is going on. I was able to use some of the dashboard panels there to identify that I can't book. And then I was able to dive straight into the logs, the relevant logs for those metrics, to identify why this is happening in this particular case, because I had some development code in my production environment, which had the wrong certificate, and it was keeping people from being able to book in their environment. Before I turn it over to Kalyan for a little summary on this, what I want to talk about is how do I continue to improve my dashboards? How do I continue to improve these alerts? What I didn't show you before, and it was on total purpose, is this bottom right-hand side. I now have a new panel in my dashboard called deployed versions, and I can keep an eye in here. And I would have, if I had this before, I would have been able to see right away that I have development code deployed in my production environment. So you notice how this gives you the ability to identify newer and newer things that you can bake into your process, and then set yourself up alerts and dashboards to be able to keep an eye on those kinds of things. Okay, with that in mind, Kalyan, do you want to do a quick?
Yeah, so that's a great demo, Mario. And I think I want to bring it home by summarizing the value that Mario showed as a part of this demo walkthrough, right? First and foremost, as many of you saw, Sumo Logic helps you reduce your MTTI and MTTR. What that fundamentally means is that Sumo Logic, enables you to identify issues with your application, allows you to trend your application, detect anomalies when they happen, and also provide you a lot of tools and capabilities so that you can very quickly get to the root cause of the problem. And that is at the heart of reducing MTTI and MTTR. And as many of you who work in the operations field know, that's how you improve the SLA for your application itself, right? Identify issues faster, fix them faster. The second key capability of the Sumo Logic solution is a collaboration that it can support across various teams within your organization. Our customer at HootSuite, put it best, right? I mean, if everybody's looking at the same dashboard, if everybody's looking at the same data, we have a single source of truth, and we are working on the same things and the right things. So providing a complete visibility into your application, providing visibility into all the alerts within your application, ensuring that you're all using the same dashboard is at the heart of that collaboration process, and Sumo Logic definitely supports that within the organization. And then finally, it's all about reducing the total cost of ownership, right? It's you don't need, and I'm sure many of you in this call can attest to it, you don't need multiple tools within your environment. I mean, it's hard enough managing your own service. Now imagine, bringing multiple management tools, implementing those management tools, upgrading those management tools, managing the management tools itself. And that's something that, many of our customers are not interested in doing. And that's why the Sumo Logic service, makes so much sense to many of our customers. We natively support logs, metrics, and events. We manage the management systems for you. We provide it as a SaaS service, and that is what helps our customers, reduce the TCO of their management offering itself. And then finally, it also allows them to focus on what they really want to focus on, which is delivering a great service to their end customers, and not spend their time, tinkering and upgrading and scaling up their management system. So hopefully, as Mario went through the demo, many of these things, came off to you guys, and that's the reason why you are on this call, and you are looking to adopt not only Sumo Logic logs, but also the machine data analytics platform from Sumo Logic.
Awesome, thank you, Kalyan. So there's a question from Imre on the call, and the question is, will this example dashboard and alert setup be available somewhere? It has some ideas I'd like to use for ours as well. Imre, I'm glad you see some value on these. We, to be honest, this setup is in a demo that I own. I'd be more than happy to share with you the JSON, because you can export the JSON and import it in another environment. There might be a few tweaks that you guys have to do, but if you are interested in it, feel free to reach me offline. My email is mario@sumologic.com, and I'd be more than happy to help out. And that goes to anybody else on the call who might be interested in this.
Mario, there's also another question that's come up out here, and this may be related to the question from Imre. So I'm an all AWS shop. What kind of AWS services and dashboards do you support?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Kalyan. So let me go over and let me show you. Well, the first thing is a couple of things. One is, as a user of Sumo Logic, you've got a library of apps, and what these apps are is out-of-the-box content. We've worked with so many customers that say bring in Apache data. We know what they're looking for from the Apache data. We understand that they're looking for visitor locations. We understand that they're looking for traffic. We understand that they're looking for web server operations. So we've created a lot of content that is out of the box, that when you install any of these apps, the only thing you have to do is tell us where your data is found. Let's say that I was bringing in Nginx data or whatever this happens to be, and then you install it, and this out-of-the-box content, it's going to create these apps for you. So having said that, we for the question itself, we have quite a few apps for the Amazon, for the AWS world. CloudFront, S3 audits, VPC flow logs. We've got a CloudTrail, Config, Elastic. You'll notice that we also have a tab here called the Preview tab. The reason it's called Preview is because these are apps that we recently launched, and we're looking for you guys to give us some feedback. But there's a few other Amazon ones in here, ECS. So these are metric-specific apps for you. And just to show you a few of these, here's some examples. Actually, here are some examples. Again, these are out of the box. I did not do any configuration. I literally just pointed my data to these dashboards, and all of a sudden I'm getting CloudTrail overview. So created resources, a breakdown of all my deleted resources by time, created and deleted network and security events. I can see some failed logins. For each of these, we have an overview dashboard as well as more specific info. So in this case, CloudTrail, network and security, I can see my details around that. Here's an Amazon S3 dashboard. Here's a Amazon VPC flow logs. So I invite all of you guys, when you get a chance, if you're pulling in data, don't start from scratch. Take advantage of all these apps that are available to you, because they're going to make your life a lot easier for this. All right, looks like this has sparked quite a few questions from the audience. So let me try to answer a few of those. Are you developing any apps for data stacks in Cassandra or Spark? Good question. So I don't own the queue for which apps we're developing. I don't have them just yet. However, we are taking those down that you just suggested, data stacks, Cassandra, and Spark. But here's the coolest thing. If you go to your product, under help in here, you have the ability, in addition to looking at our documentations, our release notes, you have the ability to log in a feature request. Let us know. As a matter of fact, what I would do is I would go in there and I would vote. If Cassandra is already in there, I would just vote, because anything that gets more votes gets bubbled up the queue, and we work on those things. So don't be shy about letting us know what you're looking for or what you would want to see, and we'll be more than happy to work on those things. All right. There's another question coming from Brian. Let's see, Brian, it says, what are your plans on collecting processes metrics on Linux servers? Currently, I have to create a custom bash script to grab Linux process metrics. Do you have plans on releasing process metrics similar to your host metrics? Thanks. So I might not necessarily understand the custom bash script, because I was under the impression, Brian, that you could use our host metrics. As a matter of fact, I think I have one here to show you an example. I believe you're able to use this app to pull data out of Linux host metrics directly. So if that is not the case, Brian, I invite you to reach out to me directly. I'd be more than happy to help you out with that particular one. All right. Again, Mario@sumologic.com. And then Sally says, are you integrating threat intelligence at this time? Great question, Sally. We are. We have released a few apps recently. Let's see. Kalyan, can you remind me with the names of them? I think it's called as simple as threat intelligence. Is that right?
It should be. I'm not sure.
It's probably is not in this.
CrowdStrike. I see that.
CrowdStrike, here we go. So there is an app called CrowdStrike, and what we do with CrowdStrike is we're able to take your data, and if I remember correctly, and Sally, I might have to point you to documentation on this, but we're able to take your logs, and from those logs, look at things like email addresses for users. We can look at IP addresses. We can look at anything that is referenceable against the CrowdStrike data, and we are able to identify threats for that information and come back to you. What I would suggest is if you go here to help documentation, and if you enter CrowdStrike, it will give you a lot of the details of exactly how it works and how you can put it together. For all these platforms, by the way, we give you information on how to collect the logs, how to install the app, and then what dashboards are available to you for those particular pieces. So if you notice here, some good dashboards, out-of-the-box dashboards for the stuff that is available to you. All right. So Sally, I hope that that answers your question on that front. Great. Okay. Let me head back here. And is there any other questions, or should we jump into sending data? Well, let's talk about sending data, and feel free to send questions as you keep going. So I promised talking a little bit about how to send these logs to Sumo Logic. So I'm going to talk about them slightly separate. I have a slide for sending logs. I have a separate one for sending metrics because I want to talk about the details for them. So from the logs world, for those of you who are new to Sumo Logic, there's two main ways that you can send logs to Sumo. One is hosted collectors, and that's a cloud-to-cloud integration. For those, it's great. Hosted collectors allow for seamless collection from Amazon S3 buckets or any HTTP source. They don't require any installation. They don't require activation. They don't have any physical requirements, and there's no performance issues to consider. So you can configure as many S3 or HTTP sources as you like from the single collector. Let me show you in my demo an example of how these hosted collectors get set up. I'm just going to go here to my instance, and I'm going to go to Manage Collection. By the way, you need to be an administrator to have access to this. Let me look for, let's say, CloudTrail, since I know that would be in a hosted collector. So if I pull up CloudTrail, there we go. So look at this. This is a hosted collector, and into this hosted collector, I have several sources. I have my CloudFront data, I have my CloudTrail data, my config, ELB, Lambda. All these different sources are being sent in a cloud-to-cloud connection to Sumo Logic. And if you want to get a peek at how this is put together, let me just click on this little edit box here. You specify a name, you specify the source category. For now, just think of source category as a tag for being able to identify that data later on. I can extract the timestamp. I can use the one that the timestamp that the data has, or I can choose my own format as well. I can do things like enable multi-line processing. If my messages are, say, Java errors, I know that they span multiple lines. I can let Sumo infer the boundaries, or I can specify the boundary myself if I want to do so here. There's a few other rules that I could also set up in here. For example, I can set up some rules to exclude certain types of messages that match a regex expression, or only include certain types of messages. Or perhaps I want to do some hashing or masking of important information, like, say, medical record numbers or credit card numbers. Okay, so so I showed you how to edit one. If you're doing one from scratch, you would go to this setup wizard, and here you can either upload a file, which is a one-time thing, or set up through the wizard. We let you tell us, oh, I'm going to do a cloud-to-cloud Akamai or Amazon CloudFront or whatever it is that you're sending. But you notice this also has the setup of metrics, your host metrics, your drop wizard, your collectee, which we're going to talk a little bit about in a bit. This is how you go about setting those collectors. All right. Having said that, let me switch back and let me talk about this right-hand side here. So the second way of doing it is using what we call installed collectors. And these collectors are lightweight and efficient. You can choose to install a small number of collectors to minimize maintenance, like the case here on the top right-hand side, so where you have a centralized data collection, or you can choose to install many collectors on many machines to distribute the bandwidth impact across your network. Examples of an installed collector, let me just go in here, let me exit this wizard and go back to that collection tab. Let's see, I think I have some installed collectors pulling some Okta data. There we go. So here is an Okta, I'm running a script that is pulling data, but it could be your local event logs, right? So an installed collector essentially is something that sits on your servers and it can collect data from there. All right, that's from a sending logs to Sumo Logic. From a sending metrics to Sumo Logic perspective, there are 3 types of metrics that we can pull in. We talked about host metrics in one of the questions that came in just earlier. So host metrics allow me to pull up any metrics from, let's say, from your host itself. So this is done through a collector. We can pull Graphite metrics. So your collect D, your stats D, or perhaps even your metrics library can be sending us Graphite metrics to our collectors, and that gets sent to Sumo Logic. And the third way that we can pull metrics is cloud-to-cloud integration from AWS metrics, which are collected in CloudWatch. So we can grab those AWS metrics and send them straight into Sumo Logic. Let's see if I have some examples of these. I see some questions popping up, so I'll answer those questions in just a second. In the meantime, let me just show you some examples here. I'm going to type, actually, let me just type Graphite. So here you go. Here are some examples of some Graphite metrics that I'm pulling in. Again, these are, if these are, I'm sorry, this is something like a collect D or something like a stats D. All you have to specify is what protocol, like whether you're using TCP or UDP, and which port number we should be listening on, and we will start getting the metrics for that right away. Cool. Should we try to answer some of the questions?
Yeah, I think there was Mario, there's a question around the, let me just read this out, about the lightweight collectors. I think Imre has some issues that he's running into with our collectors and consuming a lot of memory. How would you suggest Imre resolve this?
Okay, yeah, so Imre, I'm assuming from the way that your question is written, you talk about Java-based collectors. We are in the process of upgrading our collectors, and hopefully in the near future, they won't necessarily be Java-based. In the meantime, there are quite a few tips and tricks that our support team can help you with. So 2 things. One is I would invite you to just go to help and open a support ticket. Or if it's something that I can help you with, again, you can shoot a message straight to me. And I'd be more than happy. But I will tell you, our support team always gets 5 stars. Those guys really know their stuff, and they probably see this kind of query often, so they would be able to help you right away with that.
Cool. Mario, I see another question. I mean, on what are the ways of sending metrics to Sumo? Okay, I know you just walked the audience through that. Can you quickly review the ways of sending metrics to Sumo Logic? Yeah,
actually, you know what? I have here somewhere, actually this one here. So thanks for the question. So the review is, there's 3 types of metrics that you can send to Sumo. One is host metrics, so Windows, your Linux, your Macs, and actually we can even grab your EC2 metrics as well. We have a webinar here that is very specific on how to set up these host metrics. The second one is getting your AWS metrics, and these AWS metrics happen to come through CloudWatch. That's how they're aggregated, and we can grab those. Again, we have a webinar specifically on setting up these AWS metrics. And the third one is Graphite-compatible metrics, and this is where we're getting a lot of noise and a lot of questions these days. How do we replace the ELK stack with the Graphite with Sumo Logic, now combining the unified logs and metrics? So if you want to send metrics to collect D, drop wizard, stats D, we also have a webinar covering exactly how to set up those Graphite metrics into Sumo Logic.
Mario, there is another question here. So do you support the Graphite naming convention?
This is awesome. I like these questions. Yes. The short answer is yes, and it just so happened that earlier today I was playing with some of this stuff. Let me actually demo it instead. Let me go to the metrics themselves. I was playing with this earlier. So for those of you who know Graphite, this here looks very normal to you. For those of you who don't know Graphite, essentially Graphite uses this dot convention where you have A dot B dot C dot D all the way down to the metric itself. And what this is it's information. It's dimensions, if you will, or tags about the data. So this is telling me that the metric is latency, but this is latency for my EC2. This is for coming through stats D, perhaps on a particular server, perhaps on a particular node. So for those of you who know Graphite, yes, this query works perfectly in Sumo Logic. I'm literally right now running a query with my Graphite metric, and it's plotting that in here. We take it a step further. We actually mimic, let me turn this one off here and turn this one on. We actually mimic the functionality that exists in Graphite by allowing you to use the position of each one of these different tags. So in this particular case, average by _8 means I am using this position here and I'm averaging by that position. You, as the owner of that metric, you do know what it is. I, as the user of that metric, might not necessarily know what that position 8 is. So we take it a step further, and we allow you, this is very convenient that I put this together earlier. This allows you, we allow you to do some parsing. We can say, okay, parse this particular metric name and grab out of that these particular values. So you know how you notice how I have 3 different stars in here? What I'm saying is I'm parsing the first one as the IP address, the second one as a node, and the third one as a component. And that allows me to do something like average by component. So now as a user of this tool, I don't necessarily need to know what the _8 position is, but I can understand what component is, and it becomes a lot easier. So to answer your question, yes, we play nice with the naming convention from Graphite metrics, but we take it a step further and we allow you to parse that. And if I'm allowed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you one last thing. We have a tool called Metric Rules, and this tool is in beta, but if this is something that interests you, I encourage you to reach out to me. But what this metrics tool feature does is it allows you to create rules to parse out the names as the data is getting ingested. So I'll show you an example of one that is similar to what I was just doing. Look at this one in here. This metric rule says, whenever you get a metric name that looks like this, again, all the stars are variables. So it starts with demo, and then I don't care what's in the middle, and then it has EC2 and so on and so forth. What I want you to do is I want you to, oops, I think I opened the wrong one. Let me choose one that is relevant to us. Yeah, that one would have been relevant to us. Let's see if it's there. Oh, there we go. If I find something that looks like this, I want you to parse the 4th position and call it a node. I want you to parse the 5th position and call it a component. I want you to parse the 6th position and call that the metric. And by the way, I want you to hard code the cluster to always be web app. And what that allows us to do now is, it's pretty cool because it allows us to, in the metrics area, it doesn't matter if that metric is coming from Graphite, if it doesn't matter if it's a host metric, it doesn't matter if it's an AWS metric. Now I can call that metric with this name value pairing convention. So I could say metric equals latency because I'm already extracting that name from the metric itself. I can say node equals server 1 and cluster equals whatever I care in there, and I can specify my my plus from there. So long answer to the question, but yes, we play nice with the Graphite metrics, and we take it a step further by allowing you to parse and create these metric rules. Was there another question from the audience? Looks like that's all the questions. Excellent. So in short, what we've shown you guys today is we've walked you through how to be able to correlate your logs and your metrics. A lot of us have lived in the world where we have two different platforms. We look at metrics in one screen, and then we identify what's going on, and then we do the swivel chair effect and look at the next monitor to start identifying what's going on in my logs and how I can start correlating those. What we're trying to show you now is that this one unified platform allows you the ability to have dashboards like this one here that give you good information of your overview, and then start diving into the details where you can combine your metrics along with your logs and start correlating what's going on between those two and make your troubleshooting time a lot quicker to get to a resolution for that.
Yeah, and I'd like to just add to what Mario said. For the folks who are new to Sumo Logic, go on over to www.sumologic.com. We have a freemium model, so you can kick the tires, use the product for a month, see see all the capabilities of the solution, and see if this is the right fit for you guys. For those who already use our log product, know that you are entitled to some metrics credits. So it's very easy to get started with metrics to see how metrics can aid and improve the value that you're already getting from Sumo Logic, and that's the best way for you guys to see if the solution is the right one for you.
Great, thank you, Kalyan. Thank you for that summary. Thanks everybody for attending, and thank you for the questions. It always makes it a lot more fun to keep it interactive. Have a great day. Thank you so much.